you think this is some action-adventure movie, but I'm telling you, this is the real thing. By the end of today, 1,000 kids are going to be abducted in this country. They're going to be left behind. They're going to leave behind, rather, a parent who has to search then for those children. Pat Rausch is one of those parents who is still searching. Her daughters were kidnapped by her ex-husband 12 years ago. She thinks she'll never see them again. You know where they are, don't you?
Yes, I do. They're in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. My daughters were kidnapped from the United States 12 years ago, and they were taken to Saudi Arabia by their Saudi Arabian national father. I was never allowed to see my daughters for the first 10 years that they were gone, and I've tried everything to get my daughters back.
We'll get to the one time that you did see your daughters in a moment. But, I mean, did you know this was going to happen? Did your husband threaten this?
No, I didn't know. He took them on a weekend visit. I didn't really have a clue. I was just trying to, I wanted him to be able to see his children, and I wanted the children to be able to have a normal relationship with both parents. I tried to do the right thing, and he took the children.
And you had no idea?
No.
Even though, I mean, we hear stories now, particularly of countries from the Middle East, fathers who are from the Middle East, who seem to have some kind of proprietary...
At that time, Maury, you did not hear these stories, believe me. The actual movement for international child abduction started with actually my case.
I know, you were a celebrated case. You got statutes changed in this country in an effort to make it so that other countries would return children who were taken from this country.
That's right. My case was the impetus for the United States signing the Hague Treaty on international child abduction. And I actually modeled the international child abduction crime.
So why doesn't Saudi Arabia send the kids back?
Saudi Arabia is not conciliatory to any of the international child treaties, and they're in violation.
Saudi Arabia, who we send hundreds of thousands of troops over there to protect?
That's right.
Saudi Arabia, where we have all of these interests? Saudi Arabia, where we have a military presence today?
Yes, the United States.
Protecting that country from Iraq and other neighbors?
The Saudi Arabian government has... and the United States government are in a type of collusion together. The Saudi Arabian ambassador has about $70 million a year that he uses to lobby legislators in Washington for various
So in
causes.
other words, you got this treaty and you're getting no help.
That's right. No help at all.
But 2 years ago, I think 2, is that when you saw your daughters?
I saw my daughters in 1995.
3 years ago.
Yes.
How did that happen?
Well, for years, I tried to get a visa into Saudi Arabia, and they never would allow me to see my children at all. And after 3 years of trying with the legislators, I finally hired a mercenary team to go get my kids. And this was just before the Gulf War broke out. And then 2 days after the Gulf War started, they were en route to get my children, and 2 men were killed trying to get my daughters.
You hired a team?
I hired 3 sets of teams to get my daughters back. The first set, 2 men were killed en route to get my daughters 2 days after the Gulf War began, and then that mission was scrapped.
How were they killed?
They were caught in the crossfire of the Saudi police firing on another vehicle, and they were both killed. And I lost lots of money in that deal, and besides, all my hopes were crushed.
And then you hired other
Then
teams?
I hired a second set of mercenaries, and they basically just took the money and didn't do anything. And a third set, 3 different groups of people, because there was no recourse. Politically, I could not get them out. The Saudis told me, you'll never see your children again.
Did you have any contact with them? Were there letters?
No contact with my children at all, incommunicado. My children are incommunicado with the whole world. It wasn't until I was able to make friends with a U.S. ambassador to Saudi Arabia that was best friends with President Clinton. He was a political appointee, Raymond Mavis, and he petitioned the Saudis very hard for me to come in to see my daughters.
And you saw them?
I was told I would see them every day for a month, and in fact, I was able to see them in June of 1995 through Ambassador Mavis's efforts. The Saudis had told my children they would only see me the one time. My daughters were 3.5 and 7 when they were kidnapped, and when they brought them into a room, I was in a hotel room in Riyadh, and they brought the children into the room. They were no longer children, they were 13 and 16. I hadn't seen them since they were 3.5 and 7. And they brought them into the room and they said, Pat, your daughters are here. And they brought them in long black veils. And they took the veils off their faces. And I didn't know which daughter was which. I could not recognize my own daughters. And after 2 hours, can you imagine not seeing your children for 10 years, and then they bring them in for 2 hours, you're allowed to see them, and then they took them away again. My oldest daughter speaks English with a strong Arab accent, and my youngest daughter, speaks no English. But I had a translator with me from the embassy, and my youngest daughter kept saying, "Mama, Mama, I love you, I love you, I love you," in English, because I kept telling her, "I love you, I love you, I love you." After 2 hours, she was speaking English and saying, "Mama, Mama, don't leave us here. Please take us with you. Can you take us out of here?" They have no concept that they can leave, because as women, they can never leave Saudi Arabia without a male member of the family signing them out.
They're U.S.
They're
citizens.
born in the United States. They're not able to have any of the privileges of a United States citizen. Total human rights violations, totally.
This is your attorney, Mike Wild, from Englewood, New Jersey. Will she ever see her kids again?
We'll get them back. We'll get them back on U.S. soil. We have lobbied every U.S. senator, the last 3 presidents of the United States. We'll get them back.
Wait a minute. Can you imagine? You're trying to tell me that the United States is going to Saudi Arabia and say, okay, we're not going to protect you anymore. We're not going to keep our troops here. We're not going to make our oil deals with you until you send the Roush kids back.
That's what we're proposing.
You think? Oh.
That's what we're proposing. It's as simple as that.
Is that pie in the sky?
This is a country of laws, and we elected these officials to represent our interests, not oil, not business. The State Department has clearly said we are here to protect our business interests. That is not acceptable. Madeleine Albright won't take our letters or our calls. That is not acceptable. 54 U.S. senators signed off on this. I believe they will stand behind Pat, and I will not rest. My firm is not collecting a penny. For the last 5 years, we are helping this woman.
Okay, thank you very much. Pat, do you see? You saw your kids 3 years ago.
Yes, 3 years ago. They're now 19 and a half and 16 years old. I have a newsletter that I'd like people to know. It's www.saudichildtheft.com. They can reach me through that newsletter. I'm also protesting the building of a Saudi Islamic Academy in Loudoun County, Virginia. Prince Bandar, the Saudi ambassador, is proposing this academy for the ambassadors' children, the diplomats and businessmen in Washington, while my girls are not even allowed any contact with their mom. I'm not allowed a visa to go to Saudi Arabia, and they're deprived of all human rights, and Prince Bandar, the Saudi ambassador, wants this Islamic Saudi Academy. I'm also lobbying legislators with the religious persecution bill, and I'm going to boycott Standard Oil to try to get my daughters back.
Under the Hague Treaty, they should be home.
They're not conciliatory to the Hague. They're not conciliatory to any child's rights treaties at all.
When we come back, we're going to meet a man. It's another part of this puzzle. He risks his life to re-kidnap, re-abduct children who've been abducted by a parent. We're going to find out how he plans all of these things after this.